Welcome back to another edition of Doggin. I'm Molina Mike, and I got a pretty great guest on this afternoon and out of the UK. It was a busy day in pool, and we're gonna have a recap show of the first day of the European Open. Hopefully later on tonight. If not, I'll try to do something either when I'm on the road or maybe as soon as I get back from Austin, because I'm gonna have to head to Handshoe's place to get working on some cues for the Texas Open. So it's going to be a busy few days. I got that for a couple of days, and then home to hang out with the girls. And then after that, we're going to be on the road for at least 2 weeks, if not three. So Lord help me. But I'm excited. I'm going to keep on pumping away. I'm going to keep on lining up guests and whatever I got to do to keep rolling. It's just what we're going to do. So I've been wanting to do more stuff like within the industry and not just talking about like players and things like that. When I was out there in Quincy, I was fortunate to hang out with ACS and PBIA certified instructors, and it was really like my first taste into like the instructor side of pool, and and just how in depth that those guys take their role in their job, how they're still learning even though they're the ones teaching as well. And so I wanted to bring on this gentleman who I met online, been following his page for quite a bit, world renowned snooker coach out of the UK, Stephen Feeney. Stephen, how are you, sir?
Hi, guys. Honored to be
I,
on this show. It's good to see you, Mike.
it's my pleasure, man. Like I told you before we got started, how I first came across your page was I followed Jason Shaw on, I think it was Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and he was
Yeah.
saying he was getting tuned up. I think it was right before, maybe in the last like 3 months, something like that. I can't remember what major it was, but he said he was stopping by your place to kind of get realigned when it comes to his game and his stroke. And I said, well, who is this guy? I want to learn more about him, and here you are today, my friend. So welcome.
Yeah, it's awesome. And Jason Shaw is one heck of a guy. He got to the final just after that session, and yeah, there's some more
Scotland.
work. That's right. No,
Yeah,
no, it's a bigger one. It was one of the matchroom, one of the big matchroom one.
I think he played
Um,
Victor in the final, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
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 and there's more to do, but yeah, he was lacking a bit of confidence in his normal aggressive game. And yeah, so we got together. We had a great time, a fantastic time, and these guys they open up, and they tell you how they feel. They tell you what's going on, and it's a very competitive world out there, and it's getting hotter as we
yeah.
know, even just by recent announcements. So yeah, it's great. It's good that they want to learn.
You've trained multiple time world champion Steven across all kinds of cue sports. Do you ever find some of these guys are maybe difficult, or maybe that they show up with like a bit of ego? Like how coachable or trainable are some of these big time athletes in cue sports?
I think more often than not, it's people who are very ingrained in what I call the old ways. I'm a great follower of the samurai, the last samurai, where the old ways meet the new. And when I'm the current coach to Stephen Hendry and Ronnie O'Sullivan. They're both 7 times world champions. One has got a goal to get back to the Crucible one more time. The other wants to win his eighth. And these guys, they talk to me like we're talking now. We talk together like we're talking now. And whenever you prove things to individuals of that stature, um, they accept it. They go on belief, they go on proof, and they go on immediate
Look,
outcomes.
we talked about just for a second, that I was a big fan, and you were talking about some of the stuff I got in my office, and hopefully my camera doesn't shut off whenever I do this. But I'm going to take you
Yeah,
like on a little tour here, if you can see. Well, I
yeah,
might have
yeah.
lost it. Hold on a second. Hold on one second. Don't get away from me here, camera. Let me see here. I got a couple things on here that are from snooker players, and if you can see, I'll
I've
turn my
got that
camera here.
picture. Go round a bit. The picture that you've got on the wall behind you, I have that in my study. The Rat Pack.
The Rat Pack. My camera keeps on cutting out here. Hang on a second. I want to
Yeah,
show
the
you
Rat
because
Pack. I have that. That's
I got.
that's
You can
yeah
notice there's
that.
Stephen Hendry right behind there, right? And then over
Yeah,
my shoulder here, if you notice right behind the light, there's the rocket.
there's
So
the rocket.
I
Yeah.
got two
Put them
snooker
two
players.
together, and you have the best the world has ever delivered.
It's so ironic that of hold on a second, I'll get this thing stable. But it's so ironic that out of the two guys you mentioned are two of my favorite players in snooker. I follow all Q Sports, and they're gladly on my wall, and I got a lot of respect, and just the fan in general, man. They got a lot of firepower. But why is it that they come to you, Steven, to kind of get dialed into their game and to really get honed in on their skills?
Accuracy. It's as simple as that. If we, I think just going back to those two pictures, because I think this answers the question and probably will bring it round eventually later on, because someone like Steve Davis is often forgotten, and between Terry Griffiths and Steve Davis, they gave me a platform years ago, really. And Steve Davis changed technique. He changed an understanding of technique, but to me, it wasn't right on it. And the methodology that was applied in the game was actually leading people to play the game from a wrong position, a wrong sighting position. And these guys, so when we look at someone like Ronnie, he wants to stay ahead of the crowd. Champions will always look for new technology, for modern advances. It's the same thing in golf. It's the same thing in high sports. Um, Phil Taylor in darts. All these guys want to stay ahead when they're at the top of the game. So they will always search out new stuff that can be proven. And Ronnie was playing with what I would call an old-fashioned method, but still better than everybody else. But people were catching up with him, and he wanted longevity in his game. So accuracy was very, very important. And here's the biggest question in an accuracy sport. Surely a coach needs to not only understand exactly how they see straight, but also their student, because all cue
Right.
sports are games of geometry, pure lines of aim, pure lines of contact. And just like shooting a gun, you need to be knowing that you're aiming perfectly in everything that you do in the game.
So is the first thing that you're doing when you're working with these guys is kind of figuring out how they see things, so that way you can adjust what you need to do to get them right on that line?
Well, I was a snooker player myself, and all of the books and everything that I read many years ago, not one coach was able to absolutely guarantee and reliably advise somebody what their, in the old methodology, eye dominance was. So, in other words, they were guessing on how an individual sees straight. And I've gone through various different sports, shooting coaches, and even in dealing with the forces. When we look at understanding how somebody sees straight, don't just define it by an optician saying one eye is stronger than the other. It doesn't work like that. And all of the tests that have been used over the years, almost, myths really, pointing the finger, doing these sorts of things, the pencil, you
I've done
know,
it. I've done
and
it.
diagnosing people. I've had coaches swear blind that they're left eye dominant, and I've proved them wrong multiple times, and factually wrong, and in such a way that they can see themselves. So the first thing I learned to do, and it's become a curse and a blessing, is I find out how a person sees perfectly straight. I help them understand that, and all of that becomes extremely relevant behind the cue ball, because that's where aiming starts first. No guesswork, no putting the body there first and trying to get your technique online first. Everything starts with the eyes. Otherwise, if you're a right-handed player, it's like driving a car from the passenger seat in England, that is. The opposite way round if you're a left-handed player in the States. So, imagine in England trying to drive your car like that.
It
And
ain't gonna
and
work.
and the game was learned that way, really. Players would only ever try and get the cue to the ball first. Their pre-shot routine wouldn't involve pure sighting and alignment.
When you start working with some of these guys, are you noticing that the likes of Hendry and O'Sullivan and these top players, are they just wired a little differently than others, Steve? Is there a hunger just different than others? Is there drive to get better different than others?
Oh, definitely. I mean, every champion has something in them that enables them to not just be resilient, but to be able to kill things off. You know, to capture the titles that they really want. But here's the same thing. You know, what about the people who never made it because they received poor advice,
Right.
but actually had the makeup, had the temperament, and had everything that was needed, the dedication to be a champion. Stuart Bingham was one of those for me, to become a champion, but purely not reaching that level because they're offline, not knowing that, despite all the coaching experience they have. So I'm a great believer that the difference between coaching what you know as a player or how you play is completely different to coaching with proven technology and proven methods. And that's a huge difference. So I don't coach people how I play. I coach them as individuals, and we open up a whole opportunity for them because suddenly potting balls becomes a lot easier.
Well, whatever it is, I need to get signed up for that because Lord knows I've had my struggles. And but I noticed you're going to be taking a trip out here to the North America. I see a comment in here from a guy named Garrett Williams who asks, "Is there a way for amateur players to get coaching from you?" Stephen, is all of your training just done one on one, or is it done in a group setting? Is it anything virtual, or is it all just at the club? Or how can people get a hold of you if they
I
want to get some advice from you, or some coaching?
Yeah, I run on a simple mission statement really to make SightRight coaching available to players around the world, either face to face or online, and that's anytime, any place, anywhere. We call it the Martini Principle. You know, it's important. The online stuff through the SightRight Global Q Sports Network, which is sightrightqsports.com, provides a whole platform of various different coaches. There's a 16 session, 10-step home theory course. So that's online stuff. And we reach 170 countries now with that. But face to face stuff, you know, is people like face to face. And
Right.
the likes of what I'm bringing to Toronto is very much training camp based. I can work with a good number of people at the same time because not only do they see how each other is different and how people are independent, and that SightRight coaching isn't a one method, a one size fits all.
Right.
Rather, actually, people can learn to see how they're different, how I test, how people see straight in what I call a high planar view, which is when they're sighting a shot from a standing position, but also how they sight when they're down over the cue. And I have seen nightmares. I have every player I coach, I have a record of who they've seen, what coaches they've seen, what eye dominance they were diagnosed. And I have some nightmare stories, but you know, people will only teach what they have either been taught to teach or understand. So, you know, I put the facts behind things.
What's your history, Stephen? You mentioned you played a little bit in your younger days, but were you a top player way back when, or what's your foundation like in
Well,
snooker?
I joined a bank in on the 17th of October 1977. I was 17, and I never thought at the age of 62 that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. I had a passion for snooker. My eyes changed. I became slightly short sighted, so I switched to 8 ball pool. I used to play number one for our county in 8 ball pool, and it became a very boring game to me. Literally because I could go away on county days, play number one for the county, and spend 3 minutes playing pool for the whole day. And it just became very boring. So I got the glasses sorted out, went back to snooker, and I really quickly improved. And then I did something quite disastrous. I missed a shot on a 100 break, was asked, "How did you miss that?" Went and bought a book the next day, and it was a very well renowned book, How I Play Snooker. I destroyed my game, my long game, within a space of a few months, and the quest started then. And And look, I'm going to be, remember, as coaches, we stand on the shoulders of people who've coached before us. And I'll state again, people will only coach what they know or what they've been taught. And to put my game back together, I went to what I believe to be the best coach in the world. He was coaching the likes of Stephen Hendry at the same time, and he misdiagnosed my eye dominance. He got it completely wrong, and I only found this out coming back. I'm left-handed, and he tested me right-handed, and I got a completely different result left-handed using a typical test, which I know is totally unreliable. And it was from there that the quest of SightRight began, because all I wanted to do was win the Norwich Open. I wanted to become Norwich Open champion. I wanted to win the county titles, and I wanted to turn pro. I loved the game. I would run 15 minutes down to a snooker hall at lunchtime, practice for half an hour, and run 15 minutes back to my job
That's
every single day.
That's
Yeah.
dedication right there, man.
I loved it, and that's what I would do. And I would practice 20 hours a week. Sometimes I used to work long hours, so I would go down the club very late at night, and more often than not be in there till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning. So the game to me was a passion. I studied everything, and I didn't see myself as an uneducated individual. I felt that I could interpret things pretty well. And I put myself back together again, and I understood why people were coaching the way that they played. And when I developed SightRight, it was really quite fascinating. The patent attorney came around, and I said, look, I think this works for these three sports minimum. And I still remember his words. I've never seen anything of this ilk before. And straight away, I made a phone call to Terry Griffiths, who was retiring at that time. And my first question to Terry was, how do you know if you're sighting a straight line of aim perfectly? And his answer was, I don't. You better come and see me. And he was retiring that year from the professional game, and he had to go through qualifiers. He sailed through qualifiers and had to play Mark Williams in round one at the Crucible. But the biggest thing for Terry was retiring at the Crucible. That it's like everybody, Moscone Cup, whatever, retiring at the Mecca of the sport. Yeah. And I sat there at the back of the Crucible with sort of, my very, very emotional to see him walk out, and he lost by the odd frame to Mark Williams. And it's quite ironic that years on, I would help Mark win a world championship. But Terry then referred me to Steve Davis. When Steve Davis got to the final of the 2005 UK Open, that's UK Championship, his words were, SightRight made me feel like a player again. And he's just beaten Stephen Hendry, Stephen Maguire, and he's got to the final against Ding, an elderly age in the game, which is probably not so old now. And the difference I'm going to tell you is that when we look at techniques, the way people train people, the way people coach, and I see what goes on in pool now, and there are reasons why there's a growing difference in the standard. Steve Davis turned the old coaching methodology into a new methodology, but he didn't get it right. And he knows it. He called me a genius when I tested him and showed him, but it developed a blueprint, and SightRight has moved on from that. But it's in the world of change, we call that a paradigm shift, and it can take 20 to 25 years to execute a paradigm shift. And the opportunity now in Canada and the things that we're looking at for the USA, and the level of interest in the world of pool because of what Matchroom are doing, and the standards that people are going to have to raise their game to with reducing size of pockets, is requiring a better technique, a more accurate technique. And that comes from perfect sighting in the very first instance. And then I put everything together.
How was it, those moments that you were talking about when you made that phone call and then he kind of referred you over to Steve Davis? Was that whenever you started getting like more respect as a trainer, as a coach, or at what
not
point?
Really, no, not really. No? In back when I look back in 1997, look, I stood with Nick Faldo, and this is the difference with a paradigm shift, right? I stood with Nick Faldo with a 3-foot putt and he was offline and he was misaligned and his swing coach couldn't handle it to the point where Nick Faldo said, well, you have a look. So I was working alongside in golf at the same time, and Steve Davis referred me to Greg Owen, who finished runner-up in the Bay Hill Invitational. So, you know, the crossover for what I do is quite significant. But when a player doesn't really know how they see straight and have just been playing by a technical method, then everything is not together. So one of the first things I will ask a coach or a player is, how do you know if you're sighting straight? Does your coach know? If your coach doesn't know, how is he coaching you in an accuracy sport?
Yeah.
And that becomes a very disruptive question.
You could ruffle some feathers that way.
It has done. So it's become, you know, but it's because really people didn't accept it until perhaps I would say Stuart Bingham, 9 titles, his first world title was probably the biggest eye opener at the time. Then of course, along came Mark Williams. And I think the difference with Mark was he was prepared to shout about it. You know,
what do you mean by that, Steve?
Well, look, if I come along and bring, if you're top of your sport and I come along and bring you something that helps you keep ahead of people, you don't necessarily want others to know that.
No, you don't. You want to keep it. I want to keep you tucked away. You know, I don't want anybody to know.
Correct.
Because you want the edge, right?
Correct. And it was deemed as a competitive edge. And you know, I put SightRight technology into a cue, and it's a competitive edge. But in cue sports, you know, in snooker we have no technology. In pool, there's plenty of technology within the cues, but I feel that the coaching in pool, and this will ruffle a few feathers, you know, we can make some changes to really bring the game forward.
We got a comment. We got a comment here in the chat from a gentleman. You might have heard his name before, Steve in Feder Gorse. He says, "Bring more coaches on." So obviously what you're doing resonates with players, and this is why I like picking your guys' brain, you know, because you see things from a very different way, and it's very thoughtful and deliberate. It's not, like you said, it's not guessing, right? If you can't answer the question, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to wonder, well, if you can answer it, I want to know how you got there.
We can't ask. We don't have the luxury. If we're coaching people at the top of the game, we don't have the luxury of guesswork. You know, there is science that goes on. We're 2023, you know. Why don't they allow people under the age of 21 to have eye surgery, laser surgery? It's because their eyes are changing. I've taken juniors to world #1 in the golf world, to winning Faldo Series trophies. You know, juniors' eyes change. And if you're teaching juniors, and you as a coach, and this is going to break a few hearts, I'm afraid, but if you're a coach and you're teaching juniors and you pay no attention to how they see straight in an accuracy sport, then you could be having a very, very big adverse effect on their development. You might have 1 or 2 come through the works, but remember, you probably heard it. We all have. Oh, he was great at the age of 14. Yeah, at 18, he wasn't any good.
Yeah.
You know, changes happen, both physically, visually, and, you know, anybody who's offline technically will end up having some form of manipulation in their technique or cue action. That's a fact.
Along with the aim, Stephen, are you also working on people when it comes to form or positioning, or, you know, the pre-shot routine, getting people, you know, maybe have that chicken wing arm? Are you doing the whole thing?
Yeah, I get pigeonholed a bit, Mike, because of the branding, because of the name. But SightRight deals the whole step process, the whole coaching process deals with everything throughout the visual process, the technical process, the cue action, the stance. You know, I have a process called a power spectrum within the cue action. You know, the stance should be so easy. It's so easy. If you do the right things, the stance is very easy to form. So when people are asking players to put 1 foot here and 1 foot there, you know, they're already beginning to manufacture something that may not be aligned to how they see straight. But then that's the way they've taught. So
Right.
my first question to a coach will be, which do you coach first? Do you coach technique or sighting and alignment? And if they say sighting and alignment, and then I test them and they fail their own tests, that puts them in a difficult position too, doesn't it?
I'm sure that'll offend some people and frustrate them without a
It's
doubt. Yeah.
disruptive. A
How
part of
hard
the
is it? How hard is it to fade some of these people, like maybe within the industry, that are like so stubborn to change, Steve? Whether it's other trainers or players who are just stuck in their ways, like how difficult is it to climb up that mountain?
I've had people mock what I do. I've had people do all sorts of different things, call it gimmicky. But hey, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Anybody listening? Way back in the old day, they developed sights for a rifle. And they developed sights for a rifle to enable people to shoot straight and to shoot more accurately. Which would you prefer to use, one with or one without?
I think it's a
So
no
if you
brainer.
had to pick up a gun, which one would you prefer to use? And and
It's a
in
good
the
question.
end, that's probably the best comparison. But then again, I have to be careful because people will pigeonhole me. And we need to remember that everything in terms of once we get a pre-shot routine bang online, once I understand how someone can see straight, I will mirror every line of aim of the shot to help them learn to see that shot correctly. Because what is actually going on when I line people up is that they are now seeing along the line of aim of the shot, not what they were taught to see. And visually, you want to be lining up on the line of aim of every shot in your pre-shot routine. When you drive your car, you want to be sat right behind the steering wheel, not
Right.
over here or over here.
Right.
And that's where the understanding is so important, and the logic is so important. So why would anybody ever treat somebody to line up a shot from a physical position, ignoring the eyes? Now
It's
that will really ruffle some feathers.
you got me thinking over here, Stephen. And it's not, this ain't the type of show where I can be quiet and not be saying anything. So, but I like the way that you think. How long have you been doing this now that you're no longer doing banking, Stephen? How long you been
Well,
doing
I left the
the
bank in
site right?
2011. The specialist coach for Winmore Darts and Red Dragon Darts, and we know in the world of darts and globally, they've extended everything into the PDC with their dart boards and everything. I've had a great relationship with them, and there's some exciting news coming with Winmore later this year.
So you're
But
in golf,
2011.
cue sports, and
So I do. I can coach the following. I can coach snooker, any cue sports, of course, golf. Um, Beautiful. SightRight with TrackMan is absolutely awesome. SightRight with PutView, absolutely awesome. I've got some great stuff going on there ahead of the 2027 Ryder Cup with Adair Manor. Really, really great stuff. Darts with Winmore. These are all accuracy sports. I can tell a cricketer exactly what crease they should be taking up on the wicket. Um, I can improve accuracy in any pitcher in baseball. I've worked with footballers. So anything of an accuracy sport is up my street.
Dark Side Pool, a gentleman that he came on the show not too long ago. He has a comment here in the chat. He was quite the character. We got a fortunate enough to talk with him,
He's
but
awesome. He's
he,
awesome.
I was off nearly a foot to the left until I met Steve. So it's some pretty great compliments that you've received. What's your schedule looking like, Steve? How can people? I know you mentioned you're online as well as face to face, but what's your physical schedule like? We showed the Canadian flyer coming up, but what else is on your radar in the next few months?
It's crazy. I've got 2 week training camp at Ding Junhui's Academy in Sheffield. We then obviously I've got professionals on tour. So So we have their professional World Snooker Tour to tend to. I can drive a lot of miles in a week very quickly. I'm off to Belgium this weekend. Then we're arranging, hopefully, for something in New York in the first week of September. I then have to come back to the UK to do some filming for Winmore before I then go to Canada for 2 weeks, and then everything starts extending into the tour, the World Snooker Tour. But also there's other commitments. I was approached by the Billiards and Snooker Federation of India. They believe that their whole coaching program and development was 20 years behind. So there's a lot of work which we're planning for India. But the schedule of amateur snooker tends to affect some of these countries quite a lot. But there's an exciting opportunity there. But yeah, it's just crazy. It really is a crazy time.
Do you feel like there's a big opportunity in pool where maybe like the traditional coach or trainer isn't as um, consistent in the sport, like amongst top players that you see like in other cue sports or any other sport for that matter?
I don't want to offend anybody here, but I
Oh,
think,
please do. This is listen. We're
yeah,
it's just
no,
it's
no,
just
no,
it's
no,
just
no,
me and you.
because look, I'm a coach, right? So um, you know, at this end, what I will say is that the beauty of obtaining patents is that it goes to a significantly higher level of understanding and sanction in terms of recognizing something as a new invention with a new inventive step. And so therefore I've got that privilege. I've got that edge, I guess. I think a lot of American pool cue coaches, the instructors as you would call them, they're going to have their eyes opened. It's coming. I've got a patent in the US. I've got trademark in the US. SightRight is coming to the US, and Alison Fisher, I'm in good talks with her. She can't wait to get on board as one of my ambassadors, and I don't think she'll mind me telling you that. But it's the way that I work out how to deliver these things in the US. I want I want great coaches doing great work. I believe somebody in Seattle, um, a junior in Seattle, should be coached with the highest standard and in the same way as a junior in New York, or as a junior in India, or as a junior in the UK, with proven methods. And I think that's a real passion of mine, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. When I was 12, 13, 14, all I wanted to do was to be a professional cricketer. So US maybe won't understand cricket so much, all right? But if we look at it as baseball, I just wanted to be a professional cricketer. I'm naturally left-handed, used to bat and bowl right-handed. Back in my day, this is 50 years ago now, nearly, I would bowl 10 out of 20 overs. I used to captain the cricket team. I went up to a senior school, couldn't wait. This was a private school, couldn't wait to get into the county team, couldn't wait to advance. I used to take what we call a middle off guard at the stumps. And there are reasons that I did that. They were visual. They were reasons. I batted right handed, and my sighting line is slightly to the left. So I needed to take a middle off guard. Unwittingly, the coach in this very big and very high profile school insisted I took a middle leg guard. I was bowled out within two or three balls religiously. Within three or four coaching sessions, three or four cricket afternoons, my confidence was just destroyed. My old cricket coach went to the school, had a chat with the guy. Nothing was done. I've never played cricket since, never watched cricket since, but I can put a cricket. I've sponsored a junior cricket team, and the work I can do in cricket is significant. But I was destroyed as a youngster. Now, what if that happens to a junior pool player or a junior snooker player? How is that right? Because someone doesn't understand how they see straight
Yeah,
and how that relates technically. We do have a responsibility as coaches not to guess.
I like that. I like that. That's a great way to end it there, Steve. Because you're right, man. You're there to teach proven methods. Um, Listen, how can people get a hold of you? Where can they reach out to you? Whether it's online, Facebook,
They
Instagram.
can contact me, sightrightcoaching@gmail.com for personal coaching. Um, if they want the network, just go to sightrightqsports.com. So
Let me.
sightrightqsports.com will give them access to some a great course on there which we raised during COVID. There's a lot more stuff coming to that network, but there's some great options. But yeah, so it's face to face. I've got a team of coaches, over 40 coaches now around the world. So there's if they can't see me, I can get them to somebody else. But we know what people generally want. Um, but I'm really looking forward to Toronto. The guys at the Canadian Q Sports Academy there have opened the doors. Jim White from the Corner Bank has welcomed me with open arms. He's going to be in one of the training camps.
Nice.
And look, this guy's he knows everything about snooker and Canadian pool, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of course we've got Carter at the Master Q. So I've got people from Vancouver already trying to contact, and say, when you come into Vancouver, we'll get things sorted. And look, I have to give you a session.
Oh, I'm in. If we
Huh?
can do a virtual, I'm in, man. Sign me up.
Texas. I'll give
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You can. I tell you what. I'll send you a membership for the network, because bear in mind this was drawn up during COVID. We were all locked
That's what I
in
was gonna ask.
indoors.
Like, if the virtual came about because of the pandemic, because it seemed like a lot of this online stuff when it comes to
Yeah,
training was born because of that.
yeah. And that gave us a huge opportunity. But there's a huge second stage coming, and it's going to be pretty amazing. What I probably say is, look, Q Sports are wonderful. They give people a whole life. There's a community in the clubs. There's a community in the game. They're
Yeah.
wonderful sports to play. And if you can get better and better because you not only understand yourself and what's going on in your game and how to do the right things, and that's a good thing. And what we do for our snooker players at the moment is, anybody who makes their first century with SightRight methods, I get one of my ambassadors, Stephen Hendry, Sean Murphy, or Mark Williams, to do a video voice message for them,
It's
because I
nice.
know what it means. I don't have the equivalent in pool at the moment, in terms of those sorts of
Yeah.
milestones. But this will be my challenge, that I can have a snooker player break off harder, faster than a 9-ball pool player.
What do you mean? Like in the break shot? Is that what you're saying?
Well, if you played golf, you'll understand club head speed. You'll understand impact. So I guess SVB is always the person who probably would
Yeah.
claim the hardest hit,
Yeah.
and we see a lot of things going on with technology. But what if that action doesn't actually give him as much power as he could have?
Well, that's a great debate, though, whether or not that speed translate into a more quality hit on,
The,
especially on the
con-
break.
the control of energy in the cue ball, the input of energy into the cue ball and the control of it, and the accuracy in terms of a pure strike.
Well, now you got me thinking. There's a lot of pool players I know that can hit the ball pretty hard, but I want to,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to, I want to talk more about this. Listen, when you got more stuff coming up, whether it's online, sign me up. I'm in, and I'll be happy to, push what you got going on, where you'll be traveling to, and any questions people might have. I see a lot in the chat. I'll be happy to refer them to you as well, Steve. I look
That's
forward
brilliant.
to learning more about what you got going on and support it any way that I can, man.
Well, I can't wait to see the guys in Canada. I can't wait to see. I've already done some work at the New York Athletic Club, in New York. I can't wait to bring some things to the US. I really am grateful for you inviting me on the show. The stuff that you produce, I read it, I like it.
Thanks.
It throws a good balance. Yeah, so I really appreciate the invite.
It's my pleasure. This is the first of many, I hope, Steve, and I want to keep track and see where you're going and follow up and talk with your students more. Also, not just hear from you, but hear the impact that you've had on people. I feel like that's as vital, because it gives people that being able to relate of some of the struggles that they might have had as well. So
Here's probably if there was one thing I'd probably leave you with. I've started work with a young lad, and he hasn't been looked after very well. And he's 18 years old, and he's incredibly talented, but doing so many things badly, and he's been coached. Now, that young lad has got very upset in his game, has gone through all sorts of struggles, has gone to get advice, and at the end of the day, he should not have been struggling with the problems that he was struggling with. My issue to him is, and what I've said to him is, he doesn't need to worry about his game anymore. That's my job.
I like that.
If they miss, it's my fault.
I love ownership, man. I love taking responsibility and shouldering that and
That's
welcoming
how I
that
work.
challenge.
The guys
Yeah.
know that. And I don't know whether that's good or bad, but you create an affiliation with a player.
Well, you'll get trust if nothing else, Stephen, because then I know you'll go to bat for me. I know you take it
Yeah,
seriously. You
yeah,
know.
and we have to prove, so there's a lot of advocacy out there right now in different ways, and things have turned, but I won't say the journey's been easy. Um, but that's what a paradigm shift is, and now we're talking. And perhaps if we'd have been speaking 5, 10 years ago, you know, I would have had a different outlook. But I know there's a lot of coaches out there that want to learn, that want to go forward in the way that they coach. They're also passionate about the results they get with their players. And they want to learn the right things. And there's some governing bodies that I'm working with at the moment that I also believe want that to happen. So I think there's a change coming.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking to see your progress. I'm looking to follow up with you, and I'm looking to talk more with you. Dark Side Pool says Steve is a real deal, so we're gonna listen. I'm if when you got something online coming up, let's talk some more, and I'll be
Yeah,
if my schedule works out, I'll gladly sign up for it, buddy.
we have to make sure. I have to make sure we have a session. All right. So
I'm in.
somewhere along the line, we'll work it out, Mike. Okay.
My pleasure, Stephen Feeney, SightRight Pool. Thanks so much for coming on, and
All right. Take
we'll
care.
see you. We'll see you guys soon, you guys.
Hope you all enjoyed it, guys. And I mean no offense to anybody in terms of anything that I say. All right.
No,
But
no,
facts
no.
matter. All right.
You're being you, man. That's why I love it. I gotta respect it.